I was just asked a question. Being an outspoken non-believer, sometimes the question comes up where, well, how do you teach morals? How do you teach someone ethical behavior? How do you teach children how to grow up and be to be moral, thoughtful, charitable humanitarians? How do you teach someone this without at the same time teaching them that there is someone all the time watching every move you make. The big surveillance camera in the sky, for example, the judge, the one who will judge you after your life is over, to ensure that you've been a good, healthy, charitable, responsible human being, one that obeyed all the laws and all the rules. How do you teach? How do you teach morality without instilling in someone's mind fear of being judged after it's all over? Um, and I find that to be a tough question. I understand how that kind of teaching could really work. It could be effective. It could be useful. It could really bring about um, social behavior that could maybe be beneficial to the cohesiveness of society. If everybody believed that they're going to be judged after they die, then perhaps society on a large scale or even on a small scale would benefit from suffering from that delusion, from really believing that that's what's going to happen. So they're always constantly being charitable, and doing, you know, taking care of the sick and doing anything that they think that God would want them to do. If they're behaving this way because that's what they think is going on, they think they're being watched. They think they're being monitored at all times, so that they must do right, do well, do the moral thing. Then I think, of course, it's useful. Uh, but if there's another way to teach children about how to be moral, how to do the right thing, without instilling them in this fear that they're being watched at all times, I think that technique has existed for a long time. I don't want to say science can answer all moral problems. Science is a technique to arrive at what's really true. So yeah, it can address the question, but it's not the answer. Science, the scientific method, is not the answer to how to arrive at what is right, what is moral. It's just a technique. But the reason what it to say that something is right or wrong, even if you can arrive at the answer to that question using a scientific process, I'm not sure if science would be able to explain why it's the right thing. And I suppose that when we arrive at a conclusion about what is right about how to behave, how to treat each other, and even why treating each other right is a thing that we want to do, that we care about. I think science does have an answer. Whether we'll ever know that answer or not, I don't know. But I think it's quite clear that there's another way to teach children how to behave and how to act morally. We've 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 developed philosophies like "do unto others," the Golden Rule, for example. Every culture that survives today has some sense of that. This is not new. This is all societies have functioned with this sort of principle in mind, that you don't want to punch that guy in the face because you wouldn't like to be punched in the face yourself. You don't want to live in a society where that is going on, where people just randomly get punched in the face. So you don't do that, neither does anybody else. Society moves on. And then there's the occasional person who doesn't obey that rule that everybody lives by, even if it's unspoken. And that person usually won't breed because nobody will like that guy who disobeyed the unspoken rule. None of the girls will like him. All the guys will hate his ass and maybe kill him. Who knows what kind of primitive society he might live in. But morality is something that's just developed over time. It's part of our genetic heritage. So when we're teaching children how to behave, I think we're forgetting that they sort of already know how to behave. They know what's right and wrong. They know when someone's crying that they don't want them to be crying. They want to comfort them and try and make them feel better. There are some kids that are raised in such a way where they see cruelty and they see apathy, and they adopt these behaviors. They don't care. They don't when they see something hurt or someone crying. They don't care so much. They'd really rather just play with their toys and not pay attention. But I think inherently people know what's right and what's wrong, and all we can do is encourage the behavior, encourage them to be thoughtful about those things. Whenever a question of right and wrong comes up, they should instinctively know how to answer that question and not worry about whether they're being watched. I think that's the definition of morality: is to do what you know you would do if someone else was looking. If someone else is watching you, how do you behave? Now behave that way all the time, as though someone is watching you. So yes, it is useful to believe in God if you're talking in terms of that. But I think that that's all you have to do is teach children to act as though they're being watched at all times by their mom, and then behave as though that's what's going on. And that way you know that you'll wash your hands every time you leave the restroom. You will pick up that spaghetti sauce droplet on the floor that you left in the kitchen. You're not going to just walk away and let somebody else deal with it. All the things that you know that you would do if your mother was standing right there watching you. Just act that way. And I'm sure that society would be much improved. Nobody wants to make their mother disappointed in them. So, I suppose you could say that our mothers are our models for God. People say that our fathers are our models for God. It depends on your perspective. But if you put someone on a pedestal, it may be very useful. And so mothers out there, parents, treat your children in such a way where they will have no choice but to adore you and respect you for your wisdom and your honesty and your integrity. But don't ever be afraid to tell your children that you just don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Because children are the best people in the world at asking the hard questions. They see right through the lies and the bad stories about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and etc. When a child asks a question, a hard question, like, "Mommy, where did God come from?" Don't be afraid to say, "I don't know." Even if you don't believe, if you believe in God, you still can't answer that question honestly. Even if you're a staunch Christian, you still can't really say where God came from. So don't pretend to know. Don't tell your child that you know the answer to that question. Just say, "I don't know," and leave it at that. There's nothing wrong with saying that. So that's all I have to say on that. I think teaching morals is a matter of just teaching children what you think is right. Teach children to act as though they are being watched. But you do not need to tell them they actually are being watched. That's all.